The topic of today's module is reporting other variables. This module will cover task list items E1, effectively communicate with a supervisor in an ongoing manner, E2, actively seek clinical direction from supervisors in a timely manner, and E3, report other variables that might affect the client in a timely manner. This training program is based on the RBT task list and is designed to meet the 40-hour training requirement for RBT certification. The program is offered independent of the BACB. In this PowerPoint, we will cover the topic of motivating operations briefly. Then we will discuss what variables affect clients. Then we will discuss how each of those variables do affect the clients. Last, we will discuss how to report these variables, including a section on mandating reporting. And last, we'll conclude with a references page. The first topic we will cover is motivating operations. To start with, motivating operation is defined as a procedure or condition that affects relevant learning and performance with respect to a particular reinforcer or aversive condition. Motivating operations manipulate the value of a stimulus as a reinforcer or punisher and the probability of behaviors that have been previously associated with those consequences. So in the Skinner box, a common manipulation of the motivating operation is deprivation. Deprivation is defined as withholding a reinforcer increases relevant learning and performance. By withholding water from the rats for 24 hours, it will increase learning or performance. By increasing the value of water as a reinforcer. Therefore, when teaching a new response, such as lever pressing, it will lead to quicker acquisition of this skill, so it will increase learning. Or if this is a skill that's already in the rat's repertoire, depriving the rat of water would cause the rat to essentially work harder to receive water as a reinforcer. So basically, it would increase performance. The opposite is also true. If a rat recently had a lot of water or had free access to water, it will become satiated and decrease the value of water as a reinforcer. Satiation is defined as consuming a substantial amount of a reinforcer decreases relevant learning and performance. In this example, if you're first trying to teach the rat to press the lever, the water will not act as an effective reinforcer because the rat has already had a substantial amount of the water, and it would therefore decrease learning of that response. Or, if this is a response already in the rat's repertoire, he will not work as hard to receive the water as a reinforcer, and it will therefore decrease his performance of that response. Question. A child just ate a full lunch, and now you are working with him on mastered tasks. You are using Doritos to reinforce his responses. How effective will this be? On your homework sheet, fill in the question, how effective will this be? I'll now give you some time to get this filled in. The answer to the previous question is that it will not be effective. Since the child just ate a full lunch, he will likely be satiated on food. Using Doritos to reinforce his responses will decrease his performance of that response. He will most likely not perform the responses required to earn Doritos. On your homework sheet, fill in the following answer. It will not be effective. I'll now give you some time to get that answer filled in. The second topic that we'll be covering today is what variables affect clients. Oftentimes, these variables that affect clients are referred to as setting events. Setting events are a set of variables that may affect stimulus-response relationships. However, motivating operations are more accurate in their description of these variables that can affect clients. So for the remainder of this presentation, we will be using the term MO, or motivating operation, to describe these variables. There are a variety of variables that can affect clients. Some examples of these variables include, but are not limited to, illness. This can be long-term or short-term illnesses and can result in the shortening or cancellation of a session. Medication. You will not be administering medication to your clients. However, medications that are being taken by the clients should be reported. Caretakers may inform you of newly prescribed medications. Sleep. Caretakers may also inform you of irregular sleeping patterns that the client has. These sleep patterns should be noted, and you may see instances of the child falling asleep during sessions. Illnesses can also have a major impact on the quality of sleep that a child is getting. We're now going to watch a very short clip on sleep. Continuing with variables that affect clients, family members. If you're doing in-home therapy, other family members may be present during sessions and want to join in during sessions. If there is no programming in place that includes other family members, such as siblings, it is best to politely ask the sibling to come back during breaks or once the session is over. If issues continue to arise, you should talk with your supervisor to further address the issue. Finally, mental health. Oftentimes, the clients we work with may be diagnosed with comorbid disorders, including mental health disorders. Our clients are at high risk for depression, and you may notice behavioral symptoms associated with mental health disorders. These behaviors should be noted, but you should not suggest or make inference to specific conditions in order to protect the client's private health information. Mental health can also include stressors, which we'll go more in depth on later in this PowerPoint. On your homework sheet, fill in the question. List 5 variables that affect clients. I'll now give you some time to get that question filled in. The answer to the previous question is 1, illness, 2, medication, 3, sleep, 4, family members, and 5, mental health. On your homework sheet, fill in this answer. I'll now give you some time to get that filled in. The next section that we will be covering is how the variables that we just listed can affect clients. The first topic is illness. So with illnesses, there are several things we may see change in our client's behavior. We may see an increase in problem behaviors. The function of these problem behaviors may often be escape. Illness becomes a conditioned, motivating operation for behaviors that result in escape. For example, you may see a child engaging in a variety of behaviors, such as hitting, kicking, biting, etc., to escape demands and to gain access to things such as laying down, sleeping, etc. With illnesses, the client may be experiencing pain, such as a headache or a stomach ache, and may engage in behaviors to soothe that pain. You may also see the client pressing or hitting their head more often. Also, typical reinforcers may have less reinforcing value. For example, if a client is ill, they will more likely be lethargic and not enjoy active play, such as running, jumping, swinging, etc. And food items may not also be as tasty because of their illness. So edibles may not function as an effective reinforcer. Continuing with illnesses, your client may also have a long-term illness. Many clients, as mentioned before, with ASD also have comorbid disorders. You should take into account the symptoms of these other illnesses and disorders. There may be things that your client cannot do, and you should not mistake it as something your client just won't do. For example, some clients may not have the appropriate muscle tone for a gross motor activity and physically cannot perform that action. Another example could be a feeding disorder. The client may not have developed the muscles necessary to chew and swallow food. This can become very dangerous if someone competent in feeding disorders is not consulted or collaborated with. Now we will watch a short clip going over illnesses.
Oh, we're gonna play today. Whoa! Alright, my turn. Thank you, good job. We've got orange and yellow. Okay, we're gonna do a little trace line first. Trace line. Trace line. My turn. Good job. Trace line. line. Trace line. Hey Liz, can you come over and help me for a little bit?
Sure, what's up?
So I tried to do trace line with Gina and she flopped, and she's been here for a few minutes on the ground. Usually when I do planned ignoring, she kind of pops right up, but I don't know like what I should do right now.
Well, Mom did mention to me at drop-off that she's been feeling kind of sick, so it might just be because of that. Let me call the nurse over to see if we can check her temperature for you.
Okay, that sounds.
In the previous video, you can see the client engaging in a variety of problem behaviors, including whining, non-compliance, and eventually flopping to the ground. The function of those problem behaviors was to escape the demand that the technician was giving and to gain access to laying down. The technician mentioned that usually with the client, planned ignoring is effective, and the client will usually pop right back up. However, this was not the case because laying on the ground became reinforcing to the client due to her illness. The BCBA realized that the client was exhibiting signs of an illness, which was also mentioned by a parent, and decided to have a nurse come over. Question: how can illness affect a client? A. Clients may engage in escape-maintained behaviors. B. Clients may not be able to do specific responses. C. Typical reinforcers may be less reinforcing. Or D. All of the above. On your homework sheet, fill in the question, how can illness affect a client? I'll now give you some time to get that question filled in. The answer to the previous question was D, all of the above. Clients may engage in escape-maintained behaviors, and as seen in the video, they may engage in these behaviors to gain access to things such as laying down. Clients may also not be able to do specific responses. For example, long-term illnesses may affect their ability to perform responses. And also, typical reinforcers may be less reinforcing. For example, edibles or physical activities may not be reinforcing while a student has an illness. On your homework sheet, fill in the answer D, all of the above. I'll give you some time to get that filled in. The next variable we will be discussing is medication. Medications can have side effects such as aggression, drowsiness, headaches, and others. And these side effects can result in increased problem behaviors as well as decreased activity depending upon the medication. Similar to illness, medications can also be a conditioned MO for escape-maintained behaviors. By being on the medication, the client may be more likely to engage in behaviors that would result in escape from tasks because of the side effects that are resulting from the medications. Now, we will watch a short clip where BCBA is explaining medications to their technician. So I just got done talking with Tommy's mom, and she was just telling me that they started a new medication with him for his aggression.
Okay.
So we're currently tracking aggressive behaviors like hitting, biting, pushing. We're going to continue doing that. So hopefully with this medication, we will see a decrease in his aggressive behaviors. However, we do want to continue tracking them. That way we can maybe work with the doctor. So if we see like the aggression's increasing or if it does decrease, we can let him know and then he can maybe make some adjustments from there.
Okay.
Does that sound good to you?
Yeah. Do you want me to do anything special today then?
Nothing special, but I do want to let you know with this medication, there are some side effects. So things like drowsiness is definitely something you might see, like overall fatigue.
Okay.
Also could even see aggressive behaviors. So if you think about it, he might be engaging in a little bit more escape maintained responses. So if he's really tired, and we do planned ignoring, he might try to get out of demands and yeah, just so that he can maybe get to lay on the floor.
Right.
So just watch out for that. If he's falling asleep, give him some more demands, kind of get him awake, and just don't let him lay on the floor for excessive amounts of time.
Okay.
Do you have any questions?
No, I think I can. I'll just make notes of everything.
Yeah, absolutely. Sounds good. Question: what should you do if you find out a client has begun a new medication? A. Schedule time during your session to have the client take the medication. B. Look up the side effects to determine what behaviors to look out for. C. Do nothing, you are not a physician. Or D. List in their session notes the comorbid diagnosis and medication that they are on. On your homework sheet, fill in the question: what should you do if you find out a client has begun a new medication? I'll give you some time to get that filled in. The answer to the previous question was B. Look up the side effects to determine what behaviors to look out for. You should discuss the side effects with your BCBA. Your BCBA should then decide what to do from there. While working with your client, it's important that you take data on any behaviors that are not typical for them, especially if it is listed as a side effect. If your client is taking medication to reduce or increase specific behaviors, it would be beneficial to take data on the occurrences of those behaviors. By having data on them, the family can then consult with the doctor on the effectiveness of the medication and make adjustments from there. For example, if a medication is meant to decrease a behavior, and you either don't see a decrease in that behavior or you see an increase in that behavior, it may be time to make adjustments to the medication. As the video earlier mentioned, our clients often have irregular sleep patterns. They may get very few hours of sleep, and sleep is an unconditioned reinforcer for all organisms. We need sleep to survive. Therefore, lack of sleep can have some pretty harmful effects, such as increased emotional responding, decreased attention span, or fatigue. It can also lead to the client engaging in behaviors that would result in sleep or rest. You may see a lot of escape responses in order to not have to do work and instead be able to rest. Here we have a contingency diagram for flopping to the ground. The MO here, sleep deprivation, increases the reinforcing effectiveness of getting the opportunity to sleep. Therefore, the client may engage in behaviors that would result in that. In this example, flopping to the ground allows the client the opportunity to sleep, which they are highly motivated for. The next variable we will discuss is family members. Siblings and others inside the home may try to join in during sessions. Without explicit training in ABA, family members often may reinforce problem behaviors. If a sibling is also really interested in the therapy that you are doing, it can cause issues with getting through scheduled programs. The dynamic of a family is also important as well. Having family members constantly around or interrupting can cause problem behaviors with the client. For example, the sight of siblings can be a warning stimulus that the client will be receiving less attention, because that attention will then be given to the sibling. So a client may engage in problem behaviors to receive more attention when a sibling comes near. Now we will be watching 2 clips and then compare and contrast the 2.
All right, Emily, let's do some work today. We are going to work on handwriting, and we can write some cool stories. So, what do you want our story to be about?
A princess.
A princess?
What are you
like
guys
me?
doing?
We're writing.
Nice.
We're writing.
Can I try?
Yeah.
Yeah. Whoa, 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 whoa.
We're writing. Yeah.
Wow.
Oh, look, let's write, Emily. We're
Let's
writing
go
a story.
play. I want to play.
We're
Can we go
writing
play?
a story.
I think we should go play. Let's go
Sissy,
play.
Sissy.
Yay.
Okay, just a little bit, okay?
Okay, yeah, let's go play. Let's go.
Okay,
Let's go.
Okay, Emily, let's write a story. Look.
Oh, I want to try.
Okay,
Can I try? Let me try.
Okay, you.
Ooh.
Okay.
Woo.
Yeah. Write a story.
Writing.
Sissy play.
Woo.
Okay.
Woo.
Where's your mom? Oh, okay.
Yay!
All right, Emily, let's work on our colors today. What color is this one? Orange.
Yeah, you did it.
Dance party. You did it. You did it. You
I
did
wanna
it.
dance.
Dance party. 3, 2, 1. Stop. Okay, what are we gonna work for today? What do we want to work on?
Dance
Do
party.
you want to work for dance parties? Okay, so you have a job and you have a job, right?
Okay.
You have to go build a lot of Legos, and you and I have to do our color work, okay?
Sissy play.
Okay, so I'm gonna put our timer on, and you have to build as many Legos as possible while we do our color work. And when the timer goes off, we get to have a dance party. Okay, I'm gonna set the timer. 5 minutes, okay? Beep. Go build your Legos. Nice job. Okay, what color? Orange. Yeah! What's this one?
Red.
Yes! Oh my gosh. Okay, yellow.
Yellow.
Nice! Oh, the timer went off. Sissy! Time for a dance party! Dance! Okay.
Now let's compare and contrast the 2 videos. So in video 1, we see the sister of the client wanting to come join and color with the client. The technician was unable to continue running the procedure efficiently and lost absolutely all instructional control. The client was then able to escape several demands as well. Now let's look at video 2. So in video 2, however, the sister again wanted to come play with the client, but in this video, the technician used quick thinking and creativity to separate the 2 long enough to get through the procedure that she needed to run. And then she incorporated the sister by using her as a reinforcer for the client. The technician did an excellent job in this video. In the second video that we just watched, the technician was able to effectively work through the sibling wanting to join. However, if this were to persist It is important to bring the issue to your BCBA's attention. It is not your job as an RBT to bring issues directly to the parents. This is outside of your scope of practice. By bringing the issue to your BCBA, they can then discuss the issue with the family members and address the issues from there. Moving on to the last variable that we will discuss, mental health. Many clients also have comorbid mental health disorders. As an RBT, it is important to identify behaviors that could be associated with those disorders. You should discuss this with your BCBA to properly identify and track any of these behaviors. You should also be aware of any factors that contribute to mental health disorders. For example, bullying is a major issue with the clients that we work with. Be mindful of the situations that you may put your client in, such as social outings that are programmed in, and the behaviors of others when on these outings. Stressors can also play a large role in the mental health of clients. For example, relocating can take a toll on clients, as well as families who are involved in the moving. Family issues such as marital problems, divorce, or siblings not getting along well can also add to the client's stress level. As a reminder, you are a mandated reporter. You have a duty to protect your client from imminent self-harm. If you suspect that a client may harm themselves, you must take action to protect your client. You are also a mandated reporter for suspected abuse or neglect. We will now go into more detail on this in a few slides. So now we are going to be covering how to report these variables that may affect clients. We will first be covering mandated reporting. As a mandated reporter, there are several things to keep in mind for any type of case that you may report. You should indicate any known history of abuse or neglect of a child. You should indicate if you directly observed the alleged abuse or neglect, or if the alleged child victims disclose the information to you. If the information was obtained indirectly, describe how and by whom the information was obtained. Do you consider the source reliable? And indicate when your specific concerns were observed or heard and the last time you saw the child. Indicate where the child is now and any immediate concerns regarding the safety of the child. You should describe any known supports or resources that the family has or is utilizing to assist with challenges. You should provide the family's address, if known, and if the address is not known, be as specific as possible about the location of the family's home. So city, street, cross streets, directions, landmarks, etc. Include any known defining characteristics of the home. For example, the color, if it's a ranch, a two-story, if there's any yard ornaments, what vehicles or buildings are surrounding. If you do not have any information regarding the family's location, be specific about the place where you observed or heard of the concerning behavior. You should indicate any additional information that may assist with locating the family members, including parent or caregiver work location, school or daycare location of the child, frequent places visited by the family, such as a park, church, or a relative's home. And you should provide contact information of anyone that may be able to provide additional relevant information. If you are reporting physical neglect, there are several areas to look out for. The first is unsanitary or an unsafe home. You should describe the conditions of the home using specific information, including when the home was observed. Words such as dirty or filthy are vague and have different meanings to different people. Describe what you see, smell, hear when you enter the home. Does the home have an odor? Are there working utilities in the home? Are there concerns about human waste disposal? Are there concerns with pets or infestations? Describe any health or safety hazards that are observed. Are there concerns about sleeping arrangements for the child in the home? The second is malnutrition. Describe what you know regarding the child's accessibility to food in the home. Is there currently food in the home? Are there concerns with the ability of the parent or caregiver to consistently access food? Does the family have financial hardship? Does the child complain of being hungry? Is the family's food supply dependent upon another person other than the parent or caregiver? Are there concerns with the child's health or appearance due to lack of food and/or water? What efforts has the parent or caregiver made to consistently provide food for the child? The third is hygiene. Describe what you know regarding the child's hygiene and hygiene activities. What are the specific concerns with the child's hygiene? Are these concerns persistent? Are there concerns about the child's treatment by peers due to poor hygiene? When did you last see the child? The final section is utilities. Describe what you know regarding the household utilities. Does the home have electricity, heat, and running water? If no, how long has the family been without it? Describe the impact the lack of utilities has on the family's ability to cook, store food, or bathe. What type of heat source does the family use? Propane, natural gas, electric, wood, etc. Is there an alternative heat source, such as the stove or a portable heater, that is being used? If so, are there safety concerns with the mechanism of heat? Does the family have financial hardship? Are there alternative plans in place that are addressing safety concerns associated with the lack of utilities? For example, are food and water being brought into the home by a support person, or is the family temporarily staying elsewhere? Does the parent or caregiver have a plan to get the utilities restored, or has assistance been offered or explored? The next topic we'll discuss is medical neglect. You should describe what you know regarding the child's medical needs and the parent or caregiver's efforts to address them. Does the child have severe or a significant injury that requires medical attention to sustain life or functionality? Has a medical professional recommended the child receive treatment? Does the child have a diagnosed serious or life-threatening medical condition? If so, what steps has the parent or caregiver taken to address the condition? And what are the consequences to the child's life or well-being if such treatment is not provided? Are there concerns with the parent or caregiver's ability to provide life-sustaining medical care? Or are there concerns with the parent or caregiver's ability to transport the child to medical appointments? Has the parent expressed disagreement with the recommended treatment? Are there religious or other reasons that the parent or caregiver does not choose to have the child seen by medical providers? And last, what is known about the child's history of medical appointments? Next, we are talking about failure to protect. You should describe what you know regarding the parent or caregiver's actions that present unreasonable risk to the child's health or welfare. You should describe any known history of abuse or neglect of the child. Also describe your knowledge of the caregiver's awareness of abuse or neglect or threatened harm to the child's health or welfare. What steps has the parent or caregiver taken to protect the child from abuse or neglect? Is there a concern that the parent or caregiver has threatened the child not to talk about the abuse or neglect? And you should describe what you know about the relationship between the parent or caregiver and the alleged perpetrator. Has the parent or caregiver allowed the alleged perpetrator to have access to the child despite knowing that the person poses a risk to the child's health or welfare? Next, we are covering reporting improper supervision. The first is child being home alone. Describe what you know regarding the supervision for the child. Is there a concern with the child being left unsupervised based on age and/or maturity level? How often, when, and for how long is the child left home alone? Days, evenings, nights? Is there a plan of action for the child to take if an emergency arises while left unsupervised? For example, calling a relative, going to a neighbor's home. Are there concerns with the plan? For example, if there's no telephone in the home or no plan in place. Does the family have financial hardship that impacts supervision? Is the child providing care to other children? Are there concerns with the child's age, ability to do so? Is the child limited by a disability or special needs that would prohibit or cause safety concerns for the child to care for him or herself unsupervised? Is the child fearful, anxious, or distressed about being left unsupervised? Is the lack of supervision a persistent concern? Next is domestic violence. Describe what you know regarding violence in the home. Describe any known history of domestic violence. Describe the relationship between those involved in the domestic violence. Do they reside together? Are there concerns that substance abuse is or was a factor in the violence? Provide details such as who, where, when about the instances of violence that you observed or were made aware of. Was the child present or involved? Were weapons involved? What strategies have been employed by the non-offending parent to keep the child safe? Are there concerns regarding the ability of the non-offending parent to keep the child safe? Describe what is known about the perpetrator's pattern of coercive control, including specific behaviors, frequency, severity, and adverse impacts on the child due to these behaviors. Describe any injuries sustained by any household member as a result of the domestic violence. Is there severe damage to the home or property resulting from a violence incident? Are there concerns with the child's behavior due to violence in the home? For example, the child cries or trembles, cowers, or is fearful of going home. Have the police been contacted regarding violence in the home? Provide any known details regarding contact with law enforcement, such as arrests, personal protection orders that are in place, or police report numbers. Next is substance abuse. Describe what you know regarding the parent or caregiver's use of substances. What substances are being used by the parent or caregiver? What are the circumstances of the substance use? If prescribed, is the parent or caregiver's use of the substances in accordance with the instructions provided by the prescribing physician? Describe how the parent or caregiver's substance use affects his or her ability to care for the child. Where is the child when the parent or caregiver is using substances? Is alternate care necessary and in place? Describe how the parent's substance use or activities related to substance use negatively impacts the child's health and/or safety? Is the parent or caregiver allowing others to use substances in the home illegally or sell substances out of the home? Does the child have access to the substances? Is there violence in the home? Is there a history of involvement by law enforcement due to substance abuse? Next is substance-exposed newborn. Describe what you know about the circumstances surrounding the newborn's health condition. What are the specific concerns for the health and safety of the child based on the substance use or abuse? Was the child tested for substances? If so, what were the results? Does the child exhibit symptoms consistent with those resulting from exposure to a controlled substance? What are the symptoms? Describe what you know about the parent or caregiver's substance use and how it affects their ability to care for the child. Are there concerns with discharging the child, such as preparations the parents have made to meet the child's needs and ensure the child's safety? Do the parents or caregivers have adequate social support to assist with challenges? What supports do the parents or caregivers have to care for the child? Are there concerns with engagement of other parents that indicate health or safety concerns for the child once taken home? When will the newborn be ready for discharge? Are there concerns with the parent or caregiver's ability to address health or safety concerns that the child may present with upon release from the hospital? Was an infant plan or safe care established? Who is the child's pediatrician and what is their contact information? The last is law enforcement home raids. Describe the details surrounding the raid by law enforcement. What was the child's level of exposure to the raids? Were they present? Did they witness directly? What was the child's reaction to the raid? Were the children or the other involved participants aware of illegal activity in the home? If so, describe. Include any known details regarding the raid, such as police report number, responding police department, search warrant, or others. What substances were found in the home during the raid and how much? Did the child have access to these substances? Were there any weapons found in the home during the raid? If so, did the child have access? What do you know about the substance use impacting the parent or caregiver's ability to care for the child? And describe any known history of past illegal activity, including arrests and/or warrants. The next section covers abandonment. Describe what is known regarding the child's living arrangement. How long has the child been in the care of their current parent or caregiver? What is the caregiver's relationship to the child? What arrangement was made for the child's care by the parent or caregiver in their absence, such as a power of attorney, guardianship, verbal agreement? Is the current caregiver willing to care for the child? Is their willingness time limited? Are there currently any unmet needs for the child, such as food, clothing, medical, school, etc.? How are these directly impacting the child? Are there concerns with the parent or caregiver's ability to meet the child's needs? Are the whereabouts of the parent or caregiver known? Does the child and the child's current caregiver know how to reach the absent parent or caregiver, such as cell phone number, email, social media? And last, if the child is with a caregiver other than the parent, is the parent still regularly involved? Next, we will discuss reporting mental injury. This could result from things such as mental, verbal, emotional abuse. So you should describe the child's injury. Describe the parent or caregiver's behavior that resulted in the mental injury to the child. If more than one child is involved, are there differences in how the children are treated? How long have these behaviors been occurring? Are there concerning behaviors persistent? Is there any pattern or triggers associated with the behaviors? How does the parent or caregiver's concerning behavior impact the child? What signs of potential mental injury does the child display? Has the child been diagnosed with a mental injury or condition? If so, by whom? And last, is the child currently under the care of a mental health professional? Next, we will discuss reporting sexual abuse. You should describe what you know about the suspected sexual abuse of the child. What has the child done or said to make you suspect sexual abuse? What is the relationship between the suspected perpetrator and the child? Does the suspected perpetrator live in the home and or have access to the child? Describe the details of the suspected abuse, such as who, when, where. Does the child display behaviors associated with potential sexual abuse? Is the parent or caregiver aware of the abuse? If so, what actions have been taken to protect the child? Has the parent or caregiver sought medical attention for the child? If so, provide the details and findings of the exam. Has anyone with knowledge of the suspected sexual abuse contacted law enforcement? Lastly, provide any details regarding the involvement of law enforcement, including the agency and police report number, if known. The next topic is discussing reporting human trafficking. You should describe what you know about the suspected trafficking of the child. What specific trafficking are you concerned about? Could it be sex trafficking or labor trafficking? Describe any information you have about the alleged perpetrator of the trafficking. What is the relationship to the child? Do they reside with the child? Describe the encounter with the child that led you to have concerns regarding trafficking. Is the parent or caregiver aware that the child is a victim of trafficking? What actions has the parent or caregiver taken to protect the child? Does the child know the whereabouts of their parent or caregiver? Is there evidence or concern that the child is a part of a trafficking ring or large bust? Where is the child currently? Does the child self-identify as a victim of human trafficking? The next section covers reporting physical abuse. You should describe what you know regarding harm to the child. Describe the details of the physical harm to the child, such as who, when, where. Include circumstances surrounding the incidents. Describe the specific type of instrument or method used to injure the child, such as spanking, slapping, shoving, hitting, punching with a fist, belt, hand, etc. Did anyone else witness the incident? Describe the impact to the child's body. Which part of the body is injured? Specifically, describe the injury observed to the child, such as the size, the color, of the location. Are there other marks, bruises, welts, burns on the child that are not explainable? Did the child indicate pain that might suggest a non-observable internal injury? Was the injury accidental or non-accidental? And how do you know? Was medical attention sought for the injury? And if so, what was the outcome? Is the child exhibiting symptoms of physical abuse other than injury, such as a change in behavior, fear of going home, or of the alleged perpetrator? And describe any conditions or concerns with the parent or caregiver that may be associated with the alleged physical abuse, such as mental health, substance abuse, domestic violence. And is the alleged victim singled out for abuse or maltreatment? The last item we will discuss reporting is child death. You should describe what you know regarding the circumstances of a child's death. Describe any known history of abuse or neglect. Describe the basis for suspecting the death was a result of abuse or neglect. Describe any known history of substance abuse, mental health concerns, domestic violence, or others that may be relevant to the death of the child. Was the child ill prior to death? Describe the involvement of law enforcement, EMS, or others in the incident. Who was contacted? Was the child transported to the hospital? Which hospital? Did a crime scene reenactment take place? Describe the details surrounding the pronouncement of the child death. Who, when, where? Describe details associated with an autopsy. Has one been completed or scheduled? Who is conducting the autopsy, and what is their contact information? And if the death involves an infant under 12 months, are there concerns or evidence that the infant's sleeping environment was a factor in the child's deaths? For deaths of children under 12 months of age, please indicate the following if known. Does the mother smoke, and did the mother smoke prenatally? Did the child test positive for drugs at the time of birth? Was the infant in a safe sleeping environment? Is there a history of drug or alcohol use during pregnancy? And was the infant breastfed? The website michigan.gov/MDHHS has further information on how to report, including an instructional video for setting up an account to report online. We will now move on to communicating with supervisors. Anything that involves the client should be communicated with your supervisor. Supervisors have received explicit training in applied behavior analysis and have a more thorough understanding. Technicians should effectively seek ongoing help from supervisors in a timely manner as well. For example, if you are unsure of how to run a program, your supervisor should be contacted immediately, and you should not implement the program until you have received training on how to accurately implement that program. Keeping open communication and communicating in a timely manner is of the utmost importance. If you fail to communicate with your supervisor, this will most certainly lead to miscommunications. Likewise, if you communicate about information relevant to your supervisor with others, such as other technicians, this can also lead to miscommunication, as well as errors while working with the client and unnecessary drama. Communication can occur through a variety of forms. These can include written forms, such as session notes, email, or through text messages, or oral forms, which could include in person or through the phone. All communication, regardless of the way it is, must be accurate and appropriate. You should report the variables that we discussed previously in your session notes. Session notes should be as objective and detailed as possible. With illnesses, you should identify any illnesses and their effects on the client from your session. If a session is cut short or canceled due to illness, it should be noted as well. Medications should be discussed with your supervisor. However, no mention of a diagnosis should be made in the session notes, but side effects should be noted if they interfere with your programming. If it is known that a child had issues with sleep and it interfered with your programming, it also should be noted in your session notes. Any instances where family members interfered with programming should also be noted. Again, you should also inform your supervisor if the issue persists and allow your supervisor to resolve the issue. And again, diagnoses such as depression should not be mentioned in session notes. However, keep objective, detailed records of any behaviors that are occurring. This concludes the module on reporting other variables. Now you may take the quiz for reporting other variables.